My name is Sharbel Karam. I am an art teacher and curator based in Lebanon, Beirut. I have graduated from UZAC with a master's degree in architecture, and I'm doing a second master's in art criticism and curatorial studies at St. Joseph University in Beirut. When the protests started on October 17, I participated by going for the first time in my life to the streets and participating in the protests. I was also very active on social media, reposting and generating posting as well. I also participated in many talks and roundtables in public spaces in Beirut with many speakers talking and presenting many interesting ideas that also seemed very important at the time, seeing the context of the country. You know, coming from a family whose parents actually experienced the war, and they weren't affected necessarily by the war physically, but they were certainly traumatized. So we were raised in a way that we should not be politically affiliated or involved somewhere. And so we were very discreet politically. Yet we had a political opinion and we had expectations from our government and politicians. But we didn't really have the platform or the space to express ourselves. And so for the first time, as for my generation at least, we saw that we had the space, someone was actually listening to us. And we managed to express ourselves as much as we could at that point. I mean, if we would look at Lebanon or any documentation of the history of Lebanon, we see maps with many colors. Or if we look at the Wikipedia page of the Lebanese Civil War, we have like 4 columns and then they are divided. So it's very segregated. And for once, I think Lebanon on the map could be represented as a single dot for the first time ever. Because no matter where the protests were taking place, we kind of had the same scenery. We were hearing the same slogans, the same expressions, the same kind of music. It was the same, you know, maybe vibe in all of these places, and it kind of raised awareness at the end that we're not so different, as different as they present us to be. And after that experience, I started seeing more similarities, like for example how we are same, with the same values, same social values, ethics in most areas or all areas of Lebanon, which is very interesting because before that we wouldn't even highlight such a thing. We would mostly be focused on the things that differentiate the Lebanese people together. Now, in terms of geography, Lebanon is indeed a very tiny country, and now, of course, we had central spots where the protests were taking place massively, mostly in big cities. But what I thought was interesting, you know, being someone who drives a lot and uses maps a lot, it was very interesting opening Google Maps and seeing all these red lines linking all of the coast together, all of the areas together. So it kind of shows how spread out it was. Of course, in some places it was way more active, but that also implies how important this specific area is or how many people they actually live there. But it's very interesting to see that it was spread out like a network, like a really connected network. And this connection, despite the fact that this connection was not maybe physical, maybe people were not actually going to other places, but there was indeed a high level of in-sync work in which people actually agreed on what's happening and they just implemented it in their own space. And kind of at one point asserted the fact that this is our city or our town or our road, and we're actually we're reclaiming it. Since Lebanon does not have public space, all space in Lebanon is actually private. So for us to see people taking the roads and actually living there for weeks and months, this is important because we're reclaiming space that is rightfully ours and that should be invested for our own good.